Belinda and HarperAudio Australia present this unabridged recording of Hester Hitchins and the Falling Stars, written by Catherine Norton and read by Emily Wheaton. The dedication reads, "For Anton." 1. Eight-tailed cat. Once, a girl called Hester Hitchins was sent to live with her Uncle Henry. Hester had 2 brothers and 2 sisters, and they were sent to live with Uncle Henry too. This was because their mother and father had both died very recently. Their uncle lived south of the river in a tall and rickety terrace and was a rope maker by trade, although the sign outside his workshop said cordage manufacturer. Uncle Henry had no family of his own, and Joyce, the eldest of the newly orphaned siblings, said it was no small thing to take on 5 children when you weren't even married. But Joyce always thought the best of people. For her part, Hester suspected he had not acted out of kindness, but rather with an eye for free labour. And indeed, on arrival, the children were all taken out of school. Her brother Horace was made Uncle Henry's apprentice. Joyce was to look after the house and the twins, who were only babies, and Hester was set to work at the kitchen table every day, making cats and nine-tails. A cat and nine-tails was an especially vicious kind of short whip with 9 separate tails of knotted cord, designed to inflict 9 excruciating lashes at once. There was a big market for them, given all the people who needed to be kept in line: disgruntled crews on ships' rations, colonies full of convicts, and enslaved plantation workers. Cat-making was a lucrative sideline to Uncle Henry's rope-making business, and Hester had nimble little fingers he thought would be just right for the job. What kind of person, wondered Hester with a shudder of disgust, invents a whip that can flog someone 9 times at once? Still, she did a beautiful job of them. The handles were neatly coiled. The tails were tightly braided. Her cats and nine-tails were perfect. Unless you looked closely and saw they only had 8 tails instead of 9. It wasn't a mistake. Hester didn't make mistakes with numbers. It was her small way of making the whips a tiny bit less vicious. She didn't dare make them with fewer than 8 tails for fear it would be noticed. A whip that was 1/9 less cruel was all she could offer, but it was better than nothing. Hester begged Uncle Henry to send her back to school, but he said she'd had quite enough education for a girl her age, so she sat at the kitchen table amid the clanging of Joyce's pots and the wailing of the twins, who were named Annie and Will after their parents. She wove and knotted the whips until her fingertips were raw, and thought about how her life would be if she'd never had to move to Uncle Henry's. If their parents, who were meant to be in charge of everything, hadn't been exchanged for 2 squalling, wet-faced babies with the same names. Hester's father had been a sailor. It was the 1860s, and there were thousands of sailors at that time, because there were thousands of ships coming and going between countries, like Britain and the lands around the world they had stuck flags in and decided to call their own, regardless of how the locals felt about it. Some of these were sailing ships, and some of them were steamships. Steamers were new and fast and impressive, but their huge, clanking, coal-fired engines were prone to spit out sparks and set fire to things. The 1860s was also the age of extremely enormous skirts, held up by a kind of cage called a crinoline. Given all the ships sailing in from foreign lands, crinolines were a gift to smugglers, because they were large enough to hide a crate of explosives, or a fugitive underneath if you wanted to. Hester's father died late in 1865, when the...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?